Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, March 7th, 2019. We hope your work week is going well so far and that you are safe wherever you are listening to this broadcast from. We've got a lot to go over tonight, guys. I want to thank Mari, first of all, before we start our normal broadcast. I want to thank Mari for the video that she did today on this tornado. And, you know, we've sat here today pondering the situation, contacting friends, other people in the community who have, observed what we can so far. And the one thing that really concerns us the most is the damage and the length that this tornado traveled. I know there are some reports that say that tornadoes can stay on the ground for up to an hour or longer, but I've never heard of a tornado being on the ground for 76 minutes and the kind of damage that this caused. Now, I'm not talking about any kind of man interference, HARP, or anything like that, or weather geoengineering. I'm not saying this was an attack or anything like that. What I'm worried, or wondering, I should say, is the behavior of the storm was like a tornado, but was this something a little bit more to it than that, in my opinion? Atmospheric. Something that we're going to look into. I know a lot of people around the community, it's a head scratcher. The damage is obviously clear. But the one thing that struck me and Mari the most was this storm was on the ground for 76 minutes. And there was only, 2 or 3 videos? 2 or 3 videos that had footage of the actual wall cloud. And here we see more of the damage. Now, obviously, crews have already been working to break down these branches, these fallen trees, so they can move them out of the roads. I know every piece of wood you see has been sawed off, but trust me, folks, these things are snapped off as well. There's a good example right there of some of the tree damage that we had. Just a very peculiar storm. I could be overthinking this one, but I'd like to look into this even more and find out the exact situation with our atmosphere and other factors that happen to go into this. And we'll talk about more possibility for severe weather in the south again this week before we get to the end of the month. Things kind of go back to a cold pattern, believe it or not. And, just a few broadcasts ago, I was making the claims that we were probably going to see spring-like temperatures around the quarter. Well, we are, but we get another push. And here's one of the footage of the tornado. Now, it's called a wedge tornado. But just, this is the best that we have. And to me, it's like the clouds are just dropping to the ground and bringing wind with it. I don't know. But very, very, very ominous footage here of a humongous tornado, what they're reporting right now as a tornado. But as I was talking about here at the end of March, we're expecting more cold air across the east, so that's going to make things a little cooler in the south as well. And very interesting enough that Judah Cohen is tweeting out now that there are certain behaviors of the polar vortex that we might get another blast of cold air. Not as cold as what we'd seen earlier this year, but still another Arctic shot is possible for the Northeast and the northern Great Lakes as well. But let's go ahead and get into our broadcast for tonight. Again, thanks to Mari for excellent footage. And believe me, she raked everywhere she could and tried to find as much as possible. And again, tons of damage, just not anything of the actual twister in the sky, except for that little bit of footage there. I invite you all to go to our channel and watch that when you get a chance. Take a look at our solar wind speeds right now. We're sitting at a 402.6 kilometers per second with a density of 3.7. We do have a sunspot. And right now, I will go ahead and zoom in on that sunspot region. Let's go ahead and see if we can get the handy dandy arrow out. Probably not. It's the story of my life. Mario always fixes it for me, and I always find a way to mess it up. So, as you see, there's two bright regions here. The one at the top is the sunspot, and it's actually grown from 14 to 17 today, and a little bit of weak activity from it. And no, that's not the moon being put on a yo-yo string. Of course, the SDO moves as well, so this is just where the SDO happened to catch the moon making its orbit. But meanwhile, back at the sunspot, and let's go ahead and go to spaceweather.com. That's AR2734, and they're also talking about that little orbit here that the SDO had caught. Weak sunspot right now. We have 48 days without sunspots. That's 73% of 2019. And let's go ahead and look at what our KP levels look like for that. Not a lot of activity, some minor X-ray, solar X-ray flux activity, nothing more than an A. Solar proton increased very, very slightly, still below that level 1. KP indices maxing out at 3, but really averaging anywhere from 1 to 3 right now at this point. And a little bit of magnetic geomagnetic unrest is expected, according to spaceweather.com. Let's go ahead and take a look at this sunspot. We'll go ahead and zoom this in, guys. See if we see any indications of this thing continuing to grow. And if you ask me, I would have to say that this thing is definitely decaying. So what was 17 is now going to be a lot lighter than that, probably here in the next few hours when we get the next update at spaceweather.com. Again, 73% of the year so far is without sunspots. And let's take a look and see what kind of activity we can see on the reverse side. Again, we've seen this before in the eastern limb, a massive area of activity, but they've also failed to turn into sunspots as they cross the eastern limb. We do see a coronal hole, interesting, like a crack here. You guys can see that from north to south, pretty significant. That should affect Earth. That will be in the direction of our magnetic field. So probably have to watch that here in the next 7 to 10 days as far as when we might start seeing a possible solar storm from this. Other than that, though, it could be a matter of hours before this AR2734 sunspot could fizzle out and will once again spotless, even with that activity here behind the eastern limb still. It does not look promising as if it will hold itself together as far as any kind of sunspot activity. And let's take a look at the TSI, and once again it is on a roller coaster ride. We've been witnessing observations near the 0.7, the 1360.7 value for quite some time, and here recently, and this is 8 days behind, but this is as of February 26th, we have seen, and let's see if I can actually move this forward a little bit more. Nope, that's it. So February 26th, 1360.6398. Or I beg your pardon, that would be 6598. So we've seen it drop a 0.01 in a short period of time, and let's observe and see how far this dips down this time around. But after a long while of some consistent declining of TSI, we're seeing kind of a ripple here, if you may. All right, so let's start off with some headlines. Mari put up an article today on thegrandsolarminimum.com. Some more strange weather. Well, this is actually geological. Earthquake, a 3.4 in Maynardville. sinkhole opens up at a Kentucky zoo. Now, it's also fair to say that there is a cave in Kentucky that was closed as well. Now, that is a precautionary out of any kind of earthquake activity, but still interesting to see some caves in Kentucky that were closed before this sinkhole took place. And let's go ahead and read a little bit here out of Louisville, Kentucky. From WLKY, officials say they are investigating whether the Maynardville earthquake that happened Tuesday caused a massive sinkhole to open inside Louisville, Kentucky Zoo. The hole was found in an undeveloped part of the zoo. Officials said no animals were injured and there was no damage to any buildings. A zoo spokesperson said engineers are on site investigating. Now, following the Tennessee earthquake, the mega cavern of the old limestone mine open to tourists in Louisville has closed as part of standard procedure. He says, earthquakes happen. This is not a natural event. It is the Louisville Mega Cavern standard customary practice to close the cavern in the event of an earthquake. Our mine engineers will be inspecting the cavern out of an abundance of caution for the general public and our tenants. And this was according to Louisville Mega Cavern Executive Vice President Charles Park. The Louisville Mega Cavern established this as our customary procedure for natural events back in 2012. When the last earthquake was reported in this area, it says once our mining engineers give us the all clear, we'll resume normal business operations. We are sorry for any inconvenience for our tourists. Stay tuned tomorrow for a video and updates. Murray says this event raises my eyebrows. If anyone has read John L. Casey Upheaval, you know what I mean. What was the name of the fault zone?
New Madrid.
New Madrid. Mari has some strong concerns of that.
It's the area. If you've read John Casey's Upheaval, this particular earthquake happened about 430 miles from the New Madrid seismic fault line, and it just makes me think of the book Upheaval. If you're not familiar with it, I was planning on doing a little breakdown on the paper that John Casey and Dr. Choi correlated sun's activity with these major intercontinental earthquakes with grand minimums, which can be very destructive. And that's the big concern coming from John Casey and his crew.
That was our lovely producer / now reporter, Mari, as she has been putting together the last couple of days some flood footage, now tornado footage. And this earthquake has got her attention, and rightfully so. We've seen quite a few rare earthquakes in the last 7 days, actually. You got the Colorado 5.3. You got the 4.6 in Alberta, Canada. There were reports around the same time as the Colorado earthquake. We were talking about Old Faithful having a blow. And then now we have, let's see, what we have here is this Colorado avalanche that I wanted to talk about as well. Bear with me, folks. The joys of live. Isn't it wonderful? I know we have that first, but I'm going to jump out of bounds real quick. And did we put this in here tonight? Uh-oh.
I thought it was in there.
Oh, here it is. I went right past it. So this wasn't the lead story, but I want to make it the lead story because you have to wonder if all this seismic activity is not affecting other parts of the country. For instance, Colorado Avalanche Information Center issued extreme avalanche danger, the 5 out of 5 alert on March 7th, and warned historic avalanche danger around the central mountains of Colorado following recent heavy snow. 2 avalanche deaths occurred since March 3rd. A backcountry skier was caught and buried and killed in an avalanche near Lizard Head Pass on March 3rd. And on March 4th, a snowmobiler was buried and killed in an avalanche northwest of Togooti. That's fun. Multiple slides took place over the past couple of days, closing parts of Interstate 70 at times. The following slide took place on I-70 west of Denver on Sunday, March 3rd. And here is some footage of an avalanche taking place. Wow.
Aftermath of the avalanche in I-70. God, you think anybody got buried on the westbound? Eastbound?
I mean, the highway already appears to be in poor conditions for travel in the first place. Imagine that. More footage here from Weather Nation of the heavy snow. The car is stuck in the aftermath. This is what happened here. Early Thursday morning, the tow truck got stuck in the snow from the avalanche at Vail Pass in Colorado. Thankfully, the driver is okay. The threat for avalanche remains high across Colorado Rockies as well. And that was today. And here is that danger scale that they were talking about. And we are at the top at the extreme. Avoid all avalanche terrain. Natural and human-triggered avalanches certain. Large to very large avalanches in many areas. So this is not a warning to ignore. I don't care how long you've lived in the mountains. Take this serious and heed the warnings. Again, we'll leave the link at our webpage, thegrandsolarminimum.com. And let's go to what I was going to lead off to, which was the record cyclone. Thanks again to Watchers.net's or Top News. Okay. Tropical cyclone Helene became the sixth intense tropical cyclone of the 2018-19 Southwest Indian Ocean tropical cyclone season at 12 UTC March 4th. Trying for the most ever in a single season, the last season that had as much intense tropical cyclones as the current was the season of 2006 and 2007. Now, I find it interesting that we see certain events that haven't happened since, right around 11, 12 years ago during the last minimum. And mind you, the beginning, we were declining into the minimum at that point. Just like how 2020 is to be the peak, or we should say the bottom of this current minimum. I was surprised to hear a certain weather person earlier in the week describe that sunspots do not play a role in temperatures or anything climate related. And my only guess is that this person does not believe CO2 is the reason either. But he doesn't believe that the solar cycles or anything like that has anything to do with it. And I thought to myself, well, I don't blame him for saying something like that. He could actually believe otherwise and just be saying that to protect his reputation. He's seen what happened to other people who go against the grain, and if you like your career, you're not going to even try to associate yourself with that crowd. And I think a lot of it, to me, is dangerous, because when people like him start confirming that sunspots, solar cycles do influence and drive the climate, wow, heads are going to spin. But anyway, that stat there that just jumped out at me, that the last time this happened was 12 years ago during the beginning of a minimum like we are in right now. So interesting just to point that out. Helene has since lost some of its strength, and by 6 UTC on March 6 had a maximum average wind speed of 86 miles per hour, central pressure of 960. The cyclone is not a threat to any land and is expected to continue weakening until it finally dissipates. So pretty much not much of a newsmaker here, but just the fact that we're looking at another tropical cyclone already, the sixth intense one of this early season, I think that's why this made the news here, if anything. So we'll continue to monitor these parts of the oceans. Link again will be at our website on thegrandsolarminimum.com. And pre-monsoon cyclone in the North Indian Ocean. Tropical cyclone watch begins. Again, this is at watcher.news, not .net. The probability of a tropical cyclone in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea increases this month with an approaching official start of the 2019 North Indian Ocean cyclone season in April. While the season has no official bounds, tropical cyclones in North Indian Ocean tend to form between April and December with two peaks, May and November. So cyclones in this region rarely receive sufficient Western media attention, but the North Indian Ocean produced the world's deadliest cyclone and one of the deadliest natural disasters in known history. While in the basin sees 3 to 4 tropical cyclones on average, last year it produced 7. And the current season has already named one soar Pabuk, its earliest tropical cyclone on record. The system was upgraded to a tropical storm on December 31st after absorbing TD35 Usman on December 30th. Unofficially, this was the last system of 2018 typhoon season, but since it was named on January 1st, it became the first tropical cyclone of 2019's typhoon season and the earliest forming tropical cyclone of the Northwest Pacific Ocean on record. Pabuk struggled to intensify further over the next 2 days until it was accelerated northwestward and entered the Gulf of Thailand on January 3rd, becoming the first tropical cyclone over the Gulf since Mufia in 2004. Great write-up here on some stats on the cyclone season in this part of the world. Thanks to Watchers.news once again. We already talked about the Colorado landslides, or the avalanches, I should say. Here's one that Mari pointed out to me a couple nights ago, actually. And Italy could be forced to import olive oil due to weather. Bad weather and frost have crippled the olive oil industry in recent months, causing a 57% drop in production over 2018 and costing the sector almost 1 billion euros, which is 1.13 billion. The fall has forced oil farmers onto the streets in protest this year, calling for aid and new measures to reverse the trend. But extreme weather caused by climate change is likely to further damage the sector and could force Italians to look abroad for olive oil, according to Riccardo Valentini, director of the Impacts Division of the Euro-Mediterranean Center for Climate Change. He says here, we are getting more and more into this complex climate situation of extremes, Valentini told the Clinton News Network. In terms of production, probably we can expect this decline occurring more and more if we're not able to cope with this. Now, olive trees are very sensitive to certain climate conditions. Sometimes 3 days of freezing temperatures are more important than an average temperature over the year, he added. But I love how they're blaming this on climate change because of man-made global warming. There is a climate change, that's for sure, but it certainly has nothing to do with man. And we could all attest that February was the wettest month on record almost everywhere in the world. And that's not because of climate change, of man, all right? Think about it. Think about it. It would be worse in India and China if it worked that way. It would be worse over there than it is. But I see this as an excuse to blame it on climate change. These people are pushing their agendas to increase money that could be sent to these farmers. There's other ways to do this. And the reason why I'm so confident that this global moisture that we've seen this year in February has nothing to do with man-made climate change. To me, it screams out weak magnetosphere, increased cosmic rays seeding our skies, clouds, increasing the moisture. Yeah, I know. That's the science part of it. But that gets rejected. Even though it's a proven fact what cosmic rays do to our atmosphere, and what is the main ingredient of a raindrop or a snowflake? Particles. And cosmic rays are highly charged particles. Think of it as a supercharged magnet that pulls all the particles together in the moisture, creating these huge rain events, these bigger than normal snowfall events. I mean, Europe was pounded this year. Italy's been pounded this year with snow. The northern hemisphere, the snow mass is off the charts, and it's finally starting to peter out. It's only March 7th, but just incredible. But what irks me is that they forget to mention, like, they ignore the science of why there's so much moisture and why there's so much falling. They ignore that really important part about particles. They don't want to even address it because they know people they connect the dots. It would make sense to them. Weaker magnetosphere allows more cosmic rays, highly charged particles in the atmosphere, combining with water vapor and other particles. Again, highly charged particles, folks. This is why we're seeing the increase of floods, avalanches, snowstorms where they're getting feet of snow and not just inches anymore. I know some of you could say, well, you're just putting your twist on this, your spin, but it's not. You can look everything up that I just said. The science is correct. We're the ones being called the deniers, but yet the folks that claim it's man-made, when you try to bring these facts up to them, you get immediately called a climate denier. But I just thought I wanted to cover that real fast about Italy, and they've had a really bad floods, snow, you name it. 57% drop in production over 2018. Imagine what 2019 is going to bring. Speaking of big snows, yet another foot of snow in the mountains around Lake Tahoe, and they have just been getting blasted over here. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, sorry. Reno, Nevada, up to another 30 centimeters of snow has fallen in the mountains around Lake Tahoe, where nearly 50 feet already has been recorded at the top of some Sierra ski resorts this winter. A winter weather advisory remains in place until noon Thursday at Tahoe, where another 12 to 18 inches is possible in the highest elevation, as much as 8 inches below the 7,000 feet meters. The National Weather Service says winds gusting to 45 miles per hour are in the lake forecast, with up to 100 miles per hour over ridge tops. The service says 12 inches of new snow fell late Tuesday and early Wednesday at the North Star Resort near Truckee, California, 9 inches at Mount Rose on the edge of Reno. So this area just continues to see, every time we get a snow event, we're measuring it in the feet. And we can only imagine what the snow melt's going to be like. We talked about Orville the other night, 2 feet below its spill release. So are we going to see that anytime soon, or are we going to see it later in April when the temperatures really start to rise and we start to see our snow melt, creating saturated ground and overflowing creeks and rivers into the lakes? So keep an eye on that. Again, the link will be in our page here at thegrandsolarminimum.com. I immediately regret doing that. Still, there we go. All right. Speaking of highly charged particles, this story on Watchers.news. Intense thunderstorm hit Southern California. Almost 1,500 pulses of lightning in just, how about what you say? 5 minutes. Again, I don't have to explain anything to anyone who knows what this purple sky stands for. We all know the darker purple we see, the more abundance of highly charged particles in our atmosphere, And if this doesn't get you believe that our skies are supercharged right now, I don't know what. But almost 1,500 pulses of lightning in just 5 minutes. That has nothing to do with warming temperatures or anything like that. In fact, California just got, there was parts of California that just got through where an entire month went by without hitting the 70-degree mark. That was unprecedented. There's no warming in that. Again, this is all because of highly charged particles in our atmosphere. The increase, how much cosmic rays we actually have in our atmosphere, and it continues to increase as we continue to march towards this solar minimum. Weakening magnetosphere, you guys know the rest. An unusually intense thunderstorm brought yet another atmospheric river that hit Southern California on Tuesday night, March 5th, 2019, stretching from southern Kern County past the Channel Islands. Shortly after 2000 PST, the National Weather Service recorded 1,489 pulses of lightning off the coast in just 5 minutes, 231 over Santa Barbara County and 40 in Los Angeles County. It's a lot, said National Weather Service meteorologist Kathy Hoxie here. Look at this. They detected 20,000 pulses. You know, usually, wow. Now that's some intense lightning. But look at how it's just bouncing around like there's no end to it. And that's because there's no end to the supply of highly charged particles in the atmosphere. These weather events, when's the last time you've seen lightning like this? You haven't. More proof, too, that this is one of the deepest minimums we've seen in 200 years. Look at this. Thanks again to Watchers.news with the excellent write-up footage, as always. No one was hurt or killed, thankfully. Power was briefly knocked out at 3 terminals at Los Angeles International Airport. Lightning sparked several small fires. Jeez. This looks like something on a Metallica t-shirt. The threat of heavy rain and burn-scarred flash flooding will continue in California through March 7th. Additional energy moving eastward over the Pacific will rotate around the upper low, moving into California by Thursday evening and advancing eastward to the northern central plains by Saturday, March 9th. And let's go back here and see what's next. Here we go. Oh, quickly. Wanted to mention this. Tonight, this is our second all-time record that we are reporting. We reported earlier in the broadcast, all-time record, and now another one. And this one's for a low temperature in Illinois. Folks, it got down to negative 38 on March 6th. An Arctic outbreak in late January 2019 led to widespread, bitterly cold temperatures across much of the upper Midwest, including Illinois. On the morning of January 31st, the Cooperative Weather Observer at Mount Carroll, located in Carroll County, reported a temperature of negative 38 degrees. After a comprehensive review, the State Climate Extremes Committee unanimously voted that to validate the negative 38 degree reading as the new official state record minimum temperature. The committee ensures that the observation is meteorologically plausible, is within a range that the reporting instrument can detect, and that the instrument is in proper working order. The coldest before this was negative 36. That was set in January of 99. And negative 35 at Mount Carroll in 1930. So this area does receive the cold, but a new record all time, not for March, but again, they had to confirm this, and this is what you do. You vet the information. You make sure that the equipment is working properly. You just don't jump all over it. You know, we've reported on the Washington Post, who jumped the gun and reported all these record temperatures, supposedly, but what they're doing is they're cherry picking, and they're picking places that are recording temperatures from rooftops or parking lots with black pavement near an ice cream truck that's running all day, and the exhaust is pointing right at the device. Or my favorite, the record high temperatures that get reported from airports, where the weather sensors are right near the tarmac, right near the runways, where all these jet exhausts are blowing by, heating up the pavement, and God forbid it's a clear sunny day. I mean, come on. If you're telling me you're setting heat records at the airport, breaking them by 1, 2, 3 degrees, those records have to be challenged. Things have to be taken in consideration. So this took a while to vet. It's March 6th, almost 2 months from the event. But I'm glad that, the people that really care about the truth are doing their due diligence to make sure before they announce a cold record that it's actually accurate. In this case, it is accurate. Just another example of, if we were facing man-made global warming climate crisis, why are we breaking all-time records of low temperatures? I mean, it's not like it's in Montana or the top of Minnesota. Illinois. Again, we'll leave the link here at our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com. This one, I'm not really, into reporting this entire thing. But this is all AOC's fault. And now we have a movement. Women go on birth strike because of climate change. Birth strike is the newest movement to push advancing climate change regulations. At least 60 women have joined the birth strike movement, which encourages women to refuse to have children because they believe the earth is in crisis due to climate change. Members of this newly formed group believe it would be unjust to raise children in a world that could vastly different than the world we grew up in. Well, I think this is going a little far, but there is something to that statement that does concern all of us. Because we know it's not just the climate shift that's coming, but how hard it's going to be to adapt to when we see conditions like this on a regular, where we see cold records being broke on a regular, where snow and ice is taking all the way through May to June, possibly July, to melt. It can happen, especially in the 2030s and beyond, if not worse. So when you think about it that way, yeah, I mean, who wants to put a kid in an area where it's a big giant ice ball? Crops are going to be damaged in a lot of places. I know up here in the Northeast, we probably should have a plan in the future, but I think we've got sufficient time to make those plans too. So I'm not telling anybody out there to go out there and get you a bunker and move south or anything like that at this point. Everything has to have a plan. I don't know a lot of people out there that can just pack and go and find property and find areas to be where they're going to be safe. Because I'll tell you, and I'm not trying to be fearing it up, but I mean, what part of the United States is safe right now from climate? From the results, whether you believe it's man-made or if you're on the sunspot theory side of this, what part of the United States is safe? And a friend of mine from the UN wrote me today and also pointed out the snow in Hawaii that has reached the 6,200 elevation, which has never been seen before. Again, here we are talking about another all-time record of snowfall, and the previous record was 7,500 feet. So we're talking over 1,300 feet difference of how far the snow is coming down. Never before. I believe the last time that we saw snow at 7,500 feet was in 1952. Don't quote me on that, but I can get the numbers for you later. But I'm pretty sure it was around that time. But nothing lower than that before then. So I'm just trying to make sense of when I hear people talk about where are you moving? Well, the South, no, really? I mean, we're witnessing the beginning of the peak of our minimum, and we're already talking about some really devastating floods down that way. I believe that we will probably have some serious crop damage that's already started. Once again, I believe the South is going to be very late in getting into the fields to even work, to get the fields ready. So crops are being affected now. Imagine what we're going to see in 12 years. You know, AOC is talking about the world will be ended in 12 years because man didn't do enough to prevent this. The only thing that man can do to prevent this is to prepare themselves to adapt to what's going to happen. But making new regulations and spending trillions of dollars and rebuilding the infrastructure and banning carbon fuel and everything else that's fossil fuel is a waste of money, a waste of time, and will not do anyone any good when we start to see crops failing on a worldwide scale. And now we'll be broke, poor, and hungry. Energy prices will be through the roof. This Green New Deal would bankrupt this country in the future because there would be so many people out there lining up to apply for subsidies to help pay for the energy costs during the winters. And when we're talking 2030s, 2040s, and you've got negative 38 degrees, maybe a few nights in a row, how hard do you think your furnace is going to work during that? I can tell you the polar vortex where we experienced negative 17 as a high, and my furnace was nonstop. I had it set at 72 degrees. It never got past 60. So I can't imagine what negative 38 does to a regular ranch-style home, one story. So what do we do to avoid that? Well, let's prepare. Let's look into insulating our homes better. But that costs money too. So when I say it takes a plan to just up and move, it really does. But again, my point I was trying to make is that when you look at the South, you've got rain. When you look at the Midwest, you've got a lot of rain and moisture and snow still coming down right now. In fact, the Midwest, the Northern Plains are seeing more winter weather here in the near future. And then you got Iowa and further south, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and into the east, into the south, will be receiving lots of rain. The Northwest has been bombarded this winter with snow and rain. Some believe that parts of Washington might be the sweet spot. It's possible, but you're looking at temperatures averaging in the 40s and 50s most of the time, if not all the time. So again, pick and choose. I can stay warm in 40s and 50s. And then you've got the Southwest, where you have the constant risk of fires. And then when you have received the kind of rain that we've received in the Southwest this winter, now you're looking at more mudslides, landslides due to the scar burn areas and the heavy precipitation coming from these atmospheric rivers. And the reason why there have been so many of them this year is because there has been an increase of cosmic rays in the atmosphere for the last 4 years. Do you see where I'm going with this? Each year it gets worse or better, or whichever you want to look at it. Worse in cosmic rays and more frequent of the severe weather outbreaks that are happening. So, former defense chiefs demand President Trump to desist from reviewing climate change advice. It's according to the defense chiefs, it's dangerous for the president to ask a scientist to review the work of other scientists when that work is used as the basis of official advice to the president. The letter is here in the link. The person that wrote this, which is Eric Worrell, he says, I can understand the distress from the former Pentagon chiefs. How can anyone be expected to provide high-quality advice when that advice is unexpectedly subject to a review process? What are we so afraid of? To get the real truth. If a review is just going to unveil the truth, then why are these people telling the president to stay away from reviewing other scientists' work? That's what the review's for, right? Find out the truth? But these Democrats and other people who are man-made alarmists and they support the theory, they're always advising the president to stop questioning the consensus of science. 2 days ago, I heard Chuck Schumer say that 70-something% of the scientists now believe that climate change is man-made. Well, hold on. Hold on there, Chucky boy. It's been told that it's 97% of the scientists polled. And by the way, Maury and I helped me understand this a little better. The percentage number is very, very, very off when you look at the total people that were polled. And it was said that there was somewhere around 5,000 people that were polled, and only something like 90 or a couple hundred responded. Mm-hmm. So 97% of 300 scientists, let's just say that, out of 5,000 that were polled, and only 300 bothered to answer. They don't tell you about that part when they say 97% of the science. Yeah, 97% of the 90 scientists or 300 scientists that answered the poll out of 5,000 people that were actually polled about it. That's a big deal. So every time I'm going to hear this 97% crap, but Schumer said 70-something%. So at least, they're admitting it's not as many people as they once thought, and that number is starting to drop. But again, my question is, why can't the president look into the cause of climate change when new research has been surfacing since 2001, if not earlier? Hell, they've talked about this kind of stuff in the 70s. Some of you were taught this in high school. Solar cycles, ENSO cycles. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think Trump should keep the pedal to the floor and continue to push the envelope when it comes to climate change, because there's lawmakers right now battling it out about passing this Green New Deal. And I can't stress enough, it'll kill capitalism, all right. It'll throw us right into communism, where people will be lining up to tractor trailers that are half full of the bare necessities per family. I'm not exaggerating this. You get everybody to switch to solar and wind, and then you have to keep backup plants open. You can't allow the grid to fail. You have to keep some of these energy plants open. Coal, natural gas, nuclear. But guess what? The cost is going to be unbearable. The cost of it's going to be super, super high. And I talked about this before. This is nothing but more. This is a part of this scam. See, the Democrats don't want you investing in fossil fuels. They want you to abandon fossil fuels investments right now, because their plan is to eliminate fossil fuels. And then they'll buy all the shares up real cheap, because they know after they implement this plan 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, costs are going to be through the roof on energy. Grids are going to fail. Backup plants are going to start to refire up. And guess what? The stock for fossil fuel energy goes to unbelievable highs. And who's rich? Who's sitting fancy in 10, 11 years while the rest of the world suffers? Because of greedy politicians who are doing nothing but trying to push forward their cause. This is the elite's protection right here. They want to convince everyone in the world that fossil fuels are dangerous and they're no good, and just get out of the market for that. Just, sell your shares. They're not going to be worth anything because we're going to ban them all. But what they're not telling you is that they know that solar and wind is going to fail the power grid, because remember, 10 to 40% of the time we've got solar and wind. Where are we going to get the power out the other 60% of the time when it's negative 38 degrees and your furnace is running at full blast because you're trying to keep it warm? You're going to see rolling blackouts, if not all the way blackouts. And now these homes are exposed to negative 38 degrees negative, all because this mainstream consensus of climate change is our fault. It's a very, 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 it's evil, it's scary. And you know, when you hear about AOC talking about banning hamburgers, and then you catch her out in public eating a hamburger herself, you know, it's like I tell the people that work for me, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do. And when you see people asking you to do something that they wouldn't do themselves, you know it's a scam. You know it's a hoax. What a shoddy person you are, I guess I could say. All right, ran over. Let's take a look at Winter Storm Taylor, as we have another system moving across. Now this one's going to have another severe weather outbreak in the south once again. We just talked about how March is getting to an early start. A lot of people will say that we are looking at El Nino, which is finally getting its act together, the temperature-wise anyway. I beg your pardon, folks. I'm just trying to pause this advertisement, but weather.com is not having that. So anyway, rain and higher elevation snow are expected across the west into Friday. Taylor's area of low pressure will strengthen as it tracks through the central U.S. this weekend. Snow and gusty winds are expected in parts of the plains and Midwest. Some snow and ice will also spread into parts of the Northeast. Doesn't sound like a too big of a concern, but look at this once again. South Dakota, North Dakota, getting that snow. Minnesota, Wisconsin. You guys have seen a lot of snow here in the last few weeks. That's going to continue. And there's that battle zone there and across the northeastern Iowa into Wisconsin where that ice could be a problem. But again, the temperatures for the most part are going to stay warm enough for rain. And you guys can see this here. By the weekend, Ohio Valley, you're looking at maybe 1 inch to 2 inches of rain fall by this point from this storm. Okay, winter storm watches across the Dakotas, Minnesota. Winter weather advisory, winter storm warnings, parts of the Rockies near Denver, and winter weather advisories, Salt Lake City, Elko, and parts of the Sierras once again. Oh, please don't do that. Great. And actually, guys, I could pretty much show you all this in the GFS forecast. Here we are, the storm on Saturday. This will be the peak of it for sure. This will be the worst of the snow and ice. Minnesota, Iowa, and parts of Wisconsin, Nebraska as well. More snow for the Dakotas than anything. And then this will move into the Northeast. Temperatures are going to be hovering around the freezing mark, if not slightly above. So we're going to look at very low snow totals, in my opinion, on this particular storm because of the sleet that will fall more or less than the snow at this point. We're talking a possibility of maybe just 3 to 5 inches, and 5 to 8 inches in the heart of Minnesota. The Dakotas looking to get 5 to 8 as well. A foot is expected in the heart of Minnesota, and mostly rain for the rest of the east and the south. Parts of upstate New York could see 5 to 8 inches of snow. We'll keep our eyes on that. That is our part of the woods, so that will definitely be as of interest for us as far as Mari and I are concerned. Let's go ahead and erase these ads real quick. All right, so that was the end of pretty much what we wanted to show tonight for the headlines. Let's take a look at the GFS forecast models. This is for Saturday. Let's back it up a little bit. We haven't seen Friday yet. High pressure dominating the Northeast right now. Some scattered snow flurries parts of Illinois and southern Indiana. And as we move into the weekend, Friday we see a storm kind of setting up right below the Ohio River. Kentucky, Tennessee, looking at rain. West Virginia into Virginia, you're looking at some snow possible, but this storm quickly moves off by Saturday. And then right behind it, here's Taylor. And as you see, it really gets its act together on Saturday, March 9th, moving into the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley. And again, that heavy snow, those isobars are tight, so we could see some blizzard-like conditions. And as the storm moves into the Northeast, it starts off as snow and ice, transitions over to light rain before the cold air behind it turns it back into snow for the most part of northern parts of Maine, New York. And then we look at Tuesday. And we've got two systems coming into focus here. One in the southwest and one in the northwest. Now let's move this forward. Now, we just saw the current storm that will bring some moderate to heavy rain to parts of the south. Nothing too gnarly, in my opinion, at this point. Now, there is a chance of severe weather outbreak here in parts of Arkansas and Missouri, but for the most part, we're looking at heavy rain. But this next system, I think, is where they're a little more concerned, right here. This is Tuesday, March 12th, as we see heavy rain developing across parts of Texas, and there's very warm air at this point. Let's go ahead and check out exactly how warm we're talking at this point. All right, so we're talking about 70s and 60s for the most part, so that heat's staying mainly in the south. So there's moisture that we're getting fueled from the Gulf, and the temperatures are also ripe enough for severe weather, but nothing too crazy. But still something to watch, because we're already looking at heavy rain in the south as it is. And then we move into March 13th. That area of heavy rain expands. This low pressure system is huge. Snow in the very northern part, plains. But look at the size of this low pressure system over the United States. Right in the heart. And here's where it gets weird. It redevelops in the deep south and pushes northeast. Look at that. It expands out from Kentucky, Tennessee, through northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. And look at this. I mean, at this point, this storm is huge. Snowing all the way up in Canada, the northern part of the Great Lakes. The storm moves, and this area of heavy precipitation right here, starting on Thursday through Thursday into Friday, that area is going to see anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of rain possible in localized areas, but at least 4 to 5 inches in some parts in more than a 24-hour period. And the bands just continue to increase. Now, this is the bottom half of that massive snowstorm that's up in Canada. And look what's happening here. Turns into another low pressure system that will bring this moisture all the way through the northeast and possibly snow on the back end of this as it leaves Maine. But it becomes its own low pressure system as it moves off, and high pressure once again dominates. But look at this. This is where we see that cold air March 17th taking a funny dip. Again, the Midwest, Northern Plains, and the Ohio Valley in the Northeast still experiencing winter-like temperatures. And then we get a weird ridge right here. This is March 20th. Most of the country above average temperature-wise. But check this out. At the end here, we're starting to see that colder air in Canada moving its way. Now, this is nothing extreme at this point, but again, we have seen in tweets earlier that there is still the potential of polar vortex-like behavior towards the end of March. And we see in these future temperatures here, late mid-March, we start to see some thaw in the Ohio Valley, the South, the Tennessee area, as well as the Northeast. Temperatures reaching almost to 60 on Saturday, March 16th, and then this is where the cold air starts crashing in again. That warmer air is fighting, but folks, mainly 40s and 50s for March, especially in Texas. That's chilly. So this is not the same scale of cold that we saw in February and March, but it is possible. Right here we see another freeze, and it's pushing pretty far south, if you ask me, for March 23rd. So we'll continue to monitor this and see how much longer we could possibly see a freeze line dropping to the deep south once again. It looks like it could be possible the way these temperatures are acting. And folks, by any means are these temps 48 degrees on Saturday, March 23rd in Georgia, 47 in Alabama and Mississippi. Those are chilly temperatures. So some strange weather. We're going to continue to watch here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And let me go backwards and show you the future cast here. This is that next storm, I believe. Next week, in the middle of the week, is going to cause some problems here in the deep south. Once again, the Mississippi River, the Ohio River could be at flood stages, and parts of the south could get localized heavy rain before this storm moves out of here. And then, like I said, the jet stream does some wacky stuff here. I mean, warming up all the way into Canada, but Ohio, southern Ohio, is still freezing temperatures into the northeast. Just a weird tilt here of this jet stream going into March 20th. and then we see more moisture in the south raking the coast. I'll tell you what, if this storm right here, and we're seeing any kind of high pressure blocking near Greenland, this wouldn't surprise me if this thing gets its act together a little quicker and is a little bit more inland. Let's go ahead and take a look at this part of the map and let's see what we have pressure wise. Nope. So that little storm there right now just looks like it's going to ease off the coast, but it's going to be a nasty one there, and this one's going to move up north of Canada as well. So, but again, the fortunate part is that we're not seeing any kind of high pressure blocking up there near Greenland. The high pressure is right there in the middle of the Atlantic, and actually that's a signal too that we're getting ready to head into spring and summer as well. That's where the high pressure will basically park its butt at for the entire summer, if you will. Let's take a look now at some snow stuff. Ice slightly gaining once again. We compare it to 2018 last year. Still doing better than what we were last year. 17 doing much better, and so forth and so on. So this year definitely has been an improvement in the Arctic as far as ice coverage, and I don't even have to show you guys this. As I said earlier, we're starting to see signs of maybe this record amount of snow extent across the northern hemisphere might be seeing the end of its peak, as it looks like it's starting to peter out. Maybe. I could be wrong, but maybe it's starting to peter out here in mid-March or so. And let me see what else we got here for you guys. And I pretty much went through everything. Yeah, El Nino. Look at the temperature rise, not much there, but we are now looking at areas that are fully in the 27 degrees Celsius mark. So that is actually an improvement as well across that region. And right now the official value for the El Nino is at 0.864 above baseline. Now, I expect if this is actually happening, like NOAA says it is, that we will see the temperatures fluctuate between this mark, give or take 0.2, and peak all the way up to 1.2 again, if not 1.3. If indeed we are seeing the El Nino, this is what it should be doing at this point. And it should be staying at that level, I think, for around 30 days or so. So we'll just have to continue to watch this current situation and monitor that. And Mari, I didn't know maybe if you wanted to check in and say hello to everybody in the chat. Again, we appreciate you guys sticking with us late tonight.
It is late, isn't it, Jake? I'm about ready to fall asleep. Oh, hello, everyone in the chat. We've had some interesting things they're talking about. How expensive freeze dryers are. There's definitely, we're talking about prepping. There's Lady T got a food dehydrator, and she's been going crazy food dehydrating stuff and things. So, and then we got Grant in there. He was recommending that you play AC/DC Thunderstruck for the SoCal lightning strikes. We had a couple Metallica comments in there as well. So, and then when AOC stuff covered, we were talking about how ironic it is society today in relation to the movie Idiocracy.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's like AOC is a flash in the pan of the future, and the future is going to be full of people like her, it looks like. Well, when you look at our schools and how they dumb down our children now, or universities, I mean, it's scary.
And then I'd like to thank Spencer of the North. Don't be hating. He said, Mari's a sweetie, and did a super chat. Don't be jealous, Jake.
Hecky darn.
So thank you, Spencer of North. E.T. shared an interesting fact about your favorite fungi, mushrooms. Turkey tail mushrooms are being used to cure forms of cancer, such as some forms of breast cancer, colon cancer, and lung cancer, and other forms of cancer. It stunts tumor growth. So that's interesting. I haven't heard about that one. You learn something new every day.
Well, hopefully it could do something for pancreatic cancer, as our beloved Jeopardy host,
Oh,
Alex Trebek, has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Figures you would mention something like that.
Sorry, you mentioned
on
maybe
a live show.
this could be something that would be possible.
Maybe you could be his replacement.
Or I'm talking
You
about
always wanted
research
to
for
be
his
a
Jeopardy.
game show
If
host.
I was a game show host, I would be more like the Will Ferrell version of Alex Trebek
Well,
with the mustache too.
I mean, who did they replace Bob Barker with? Drew Carey.
Drew
So,
Carey.
I mean,
So you're saying I'm the Drew Carey of Jeopardy?
anyway,
That's adorable.
I'm going to try to do a video tomorrow covering John Casey's research with solar and earthquake connection and New Madrid fault line, just because
Yeah, interesting stuff happening.
I've been into the making video thing, so there you go. I was talking to people in the chat. How funny is it? My last flood video only got 2.5 thousand views when we have tens of thousands of subs, and I'm like, we are heavily censored on YouTube. It's not fair. It's frustrating because I sink a lot of time into those videos, researching, getting all the crazy imagery from videos to still photos, just to facts and figures, and it's like no one gets to see it.
I want
really.
to vouch for Mari on that. I've watched her actually look at footage to put into videos and turn it down because it just wasn't good video. I mean, the person that operated the camera didn't know what he was doing. So Mari's really picky about the footage. That she just doesn't get in there and grab the first thing she finds on Google News. I mean, I've watched her do this. You're right. Your videos deserve the 10,000 range at least. I don't see anybody else that covered the floods and the tornadoes like you have in the past couple of days. So awesome job. And hopefully these videos will get shared so people are informed of what's happening around here and get the truth about why it's happening. Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. There's so much in the chat. We have a lot of new faces and a lot of people who come back all the time, familiar faces. We even had someone ask, he popped in the chat, I think it was Jeff, actually, from Xenia. He got unsubscribed. And I'm like, well, welcome to
Jeff from
YouTube.
Xenia?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it could be happening, folks.
I think it was him.
There's a guy,
I don't know.
you might be talking about Jeff from Manchester, Tennessee.
No, this is I think it was Jeff Laporte. Laporte.
Well, either way, welcome back. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised YouTube doesn't.
Well, my other channel was subscribed to Grand Solar Minimum and it got unsubbed.
Oh, there
So,
you go.
I mean, and I've been unsubbed from other channels and totally not intentionally. It's like, how does that happen?
And I just want to announce that we've officially been on the air longer than the tornado in Alabama, which was 116 hour and 16 minutes. With this now an hour and 17 minutes. So this will be a good time to end the broadcast. Mari, thank you once again for your videos and productions that you've put out the last couple of days and giving us the update. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. The Grand Solar Minimum channel here on YouTube. We are going to try like hell to have a broadcast on Sunday with Henrik, the Danish Grand Solar Minimum channel. So we have been saying this over and over. Our schedules have not matched up. And hopefully this is the weekend that we get old Henrik back. Because he's got a holiday he'd like to talk about over there. We talked about it actually last Father's Day.
He has to give everyone an update on his doggy as well.
And the dog update, absolutely. So, guys, tune in hopefully Sunday afternoon or evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we will talk soon. Take care, everyone.